out of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And yes, I'm just here for support, to support the audience and to support. Surprisingly, I'm co-hosting. I had no idea. So, but I know Amy, she's gonna knock it out the park. So, if you need me, just I'll be here.
All right,
But
Amy.
I hardly doubt it.
So, Amy, here we are. What's going on in the RON space?
Oh my goodness, I thought I was coming in here just to help with something. I didn't realize I was presenting. Oh boy, really pulling it out. So, let's see, the newest thing in the RON space isn't really the RON aspect, it's more to going into the e-apostilles. That would be the newest thing that's come out. And then the North Carolina REN, R-E-N, Remote Electronic Notarization Act, that has come out here recently. Oh my goodness. But that's pretty much all I've seen here recently that's changed. North Carolina has really interesting clauses and conditions in their laws that's unique to the rest of the states. But the e-apps are the most exciting thing, at least for me. Have you heard about the e-apps, Teresa?
I have. I have, and I'm in Connecticut now, and Connecticut does everything online, which is great. They have a great platform here in Connecticut. All right.
Yeah, I'm actually working with Ms. Sayel to get one done. We're hoping for Friday to start it. So.
Okay. So how many of us are remote online notaries? And Amy, so let's talk briefly about there is remote online notary and then there is remote ink notarization. I'm still have concerns about RIN here in Connecticut, but let's talk about remote online notarization, what it is for someone who wants to get into it and don't know what it is. Raquel, someone had a question just now? Okay, never mind. Amy, let's go. A snapshot, remote online notarization, remote ink notarization.
Okay. So remote online notarization is the process where you're meeting with your signer virtually and you're utilizing electronic signatures and electronic stamp on an electronic document. Okay, everything is electronic. Now, when you're done, you can print that electronic document into a tangible document, but there will be no ink pen and no ink used in that transaction. If it's a remote ink notarization, or if you're in Montana, it's called remote notarization, the process is different. You're not using electronic, you're using remote location, but you're signing all of the documents with ink pen and an ink stamp. So the signer would sign the documents and then transmit those documents physically to the notary, where the notary would then sign and stamp the documents. How the video session works is different in different states. Some states you meet on video when the signer signs it. Some states you meet on the video when the notary signs it. And some states you meet on the video when both people sign it. So you're doing two video sessions. Remote ink notarization has a lot more limits in different states, such as Illinois. The signer has to be physically in Illinois at the time of the remote signing. There's requirements on time. If you're in, trying to think what state it is, if you're in the state of Delaware, if I signed a document remotely for a Delaware notary today, the 14th, I have to have that document in the notary's hands within 3 days. So I have to make sure that I'm shipping that appropriately so that they can put their notary stamp on there within 3 days of the date that I actually signed the document. So that makes it a little bit more limiting. And there's a little bit more limiting on what types of notary acts, depending upon the states, that can be done with remote ink versus remote online and vice versa. So basically one's all electronic and the other one is tangible. It's in physical documents.
Okay, awesome. No, the question that I have, Amy, is for the remote ink notarization, especially for Connecticut. Connecticut is very specific with it. Is that the documents have to be recorded and for use here in Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, here for use in Connecticut. Is that the same with most of the other states that are remote ink notarizations?
Um, it's going to depend, and it's not just with remote ink, like even remote online notarization. If the signer is international for a West Virginia notary, even using electronic means, that document has to be used in West Virginia. Other states, even with every state's a little bit different, but you're right. It does have to be used in Connecticut for Connecticut. Now, for Montana, no. For Wyoming, no. But if you're wanting to get it apostille, which in my case, that's what most of the people are using this for, is to file business disclosures and things for
Hmm.
businesses that are founded in the states, and those have to be apostille, and that's what they're needing. So those always have to be in the state that the notary is in order to be filed in apostille there.
A question that I have here, Amy, do we have tip sheets? I was at a conference one time and you had some notary tip sheets on a clipboard that we got. I thought that was really, really great. That was a really great tool then. Do you still have that in your arsenal?
I still have it. I took it off of Amazon. I'm currently rebranding and putting that stuff back out there. Obviously, I've changed names, changed companies. So I've gotten a couple of my books republished, but that journaling workbook, I called it the Ultimate Ron Checklist, is going to be back out here soon.
Okay, Amy, so some of the questions that have come across me in my community is the fear of remote online notarization, especially when it comes to tagging the documents. Um, and I know that each platform does things differently, so there is like no one training that can benefit all of the platforms. What is the basic core that someone needs to understand when it comes to tagging documents?
Understanding what tag goes to what type of allocation. Is it name? Is it assigned to the specific person? That is going to be universal in all platforms. And you're right, they do them all differently, but they all have the same basic functions. The name is going to be the name of the principal whose name was entered into the session. The date is always going to be the date of today. It's not ever going to let you backdate or forward date. So if you're doing a birthday, you want to use text so that you can manually enter a birth date. If you're doing an expiration date, which is in the future, you're going to want to use text and not a date field, because the date on the platforms is always going to be reflective of the current date. And most of them won't let you change that. Some will. Everyone's a little customizable, but that's an important factor to remember. Understanding how the text box works. Like I was on a platform and someone entered their address in as a witness because Florida's a witness state, and I hit the enter button so that their city, state, and zip were on the next line, and it removed the second line off of that tag. So I had to go and have that session redone because it deleted it and I had no idea that it had deleted it. So understanding the little nuances that your specific platform does is an important factor. And knowing how to combine documents. Every platform is going to be a little different, but if you're adding an acknowledgement or a jurat or a copy certification to a document that the customer's uploaded, you don't want it to be a separate document from that original file. You want it all to be one cohesive file when it exports. because if you don't, then there's two different digital certificates. There's two different audit tags, audit logs. There's two different files that they're just printing and putting together, and that's not the true essence of an online session. They need to come out in a single document. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And if you're in a state like if you're in a state like Kentucky and you use a system that has separate export when you add a loose leaf, and it's going to the Kentucky Secretary of State for apostille, they will reject it if it's the two separate electronic files.
Okay, I did just a moment, Stephen. I did an apostille in Pennsylvania a couple of weeks ago, and the when I handed it to the agent, he basically told me I can't accept this because there is no seal, there is no identification that it was notarized online. And it took me back there for a moment because I knew it was done online, and he was asking me for like a trailing doc. So when I called the notary and I said, he says he cannot be he cannot be apostille because it doesn't have any verification that it was done online. So she told me to zoom in, and it's right above the stamp where it says it's a remote online notarization. When I showed it to him, then he said, and he really apologized then for not seeing it sooner. So all remote online notarizations, is that the only identification that they have, or is there like a trailing document that's attached to the remote online notarization document itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in all RON sessions, there's the document that's encoded, the notarial certificate directly reflecting your state's requirements. Most states just say it needs to do, um, it needs to say it was done through communication technology or was done online. Other states require the physical location of the signer during the session, and other states require that it say that if the signer is international, that it was going to be used in the United States against a government thing or real estate process. But in addition to that, each platform will have what I call an audit report or a certificate of verification.
Hmm.
And you can print that to show that your signer went through ID verification. It will show, some will actually show the signatures of each person and how they were applied and what time and date they were applied and reflective to the signer's time zone. It'll show the name, and it'll show all of that different aspects. And that's an important document because if, I know we don't have any Ohio notaries in here, but some companies like Ohio Pension for the OPERS, if they have a session that's done online to pull funds out of those retirement accounts, it has to be an Ohio notary and they have to have the audit report. Otherwise, they won't let that person pull that money out, even though it was remotely notarized.
Mm, wow, interesting. Miss Ayel, I'm sorry, Stephen, you have a question?
Yes. Hi, Amy. How are you? The question I have is that, as you well know, I use Pro Notary as my platform of choice, and I've noticed some recent updates. I was using your trick where, before the session was there, the client, because we can't tell them to use acknowledgement or a jurat. So I recently saw with Pro Notary they have an update where you can now put in the certificate. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware. I haven't played in it yet. I been working with them and we've been doing emails back and forth. So they've given me a verbal or a typed list of all the updates. But with the holidays
Right,
and all,
right.
I kind of slacked and didn't get in there and do anything with them here lately.
Okay.
Um, but it is something that is on my list, and I'll go back in there and play around in it again
Yeah,
because that might
I've
mean
done
I
a couple
need
of
to update my
sessions.
training.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I just wanted to. So I've done that a couple of times. Now, the only question I have, because the reason why I used Pro Notary was because the other platforms would steal your clients, especially if it was your high tail clients. But recently, I heard that you guys are now promoting Blue Notary again. Did they change their structure in terms of like stealing people's clients? Like, because by what I mean by stealing, to keep everybody in the loop, is that you would register the client and then do the session, and then a few weeks or a few days later, they would email that client and say, "Did you like the notary so and so? We have tons of notaries that will be doing it for this set price." So I was under the impression that we didn't really like big tech platforms like Blue Notary. So has anything changed? Because recently I see you're promoting them again. I know they changed a couple of things. I'm just curious.
We have not technically started promoting them or anything, and I can't elaborate on a lot of details, but I will say that there's communication happening and there's announcements coming soon with that and another Ron
Okay,
platform. So
I catch your drift. I get it. All right, I asked. I got it. All right, thank you so much, Amy.
All right.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. There's one question I want to ask. When you're doing different sessions, New York, we're a little bit different in New York. I know that we get to charge up to 25 per each signature. It, when it comes to like doing like let's say the loan signing, because I've been getting a lot more. Is it wise to do less than the loan signing or charge more than what the state is allowing, because it is a lot of signatures? So I'm still pretty conflicted by that, because I don't know what's the consensus of that, because like it sometimes it feels like I should be charging more, because to do a full loan signing online sometimes can take up to 2 hours if the person is not technological savvy, if that makes sense.
it does. So when you're doing general notary work, you have to adhere to your state laws as to what you could charge per notarization. That's entirely correct. Each state has different amounts. Some allow technology fees, some are silent on technology fees. So you have the discretion. I'm not an attorney. I can't tell you whether or not you can charge it or not, but you need to know what you can defend in court if whatever you're charging. When you're dealing with real estate documents, it's just like if you were doing it in person. You're still going through, you're still itemizing and giving an overview of the document. You're still doing additional work that's in addition to the notarization. We're tagging documents for, uh, oh my goodness, the Florida title insurance, and we're tagging documents for all of these different documents that don't need notarization. I did some for a motorhome, like a trailer, and they sold 4 trailers, and so we had to tag 4 bill of sales that didn't need notarized, but we had to put all of their addresses in and things of that nature. So when I'm doing an online session, I price it just like I would in realistic comparison to what I would charge if I were doing an in-person signing, because there are extra aspects that you're doing, and it is a longer document. I've had a buyer package that was 150 pages, and I had to tag all of it. And it's actually a lot harder to do an online session because you've got to make sure all those tags are exactly where they need to be, because there's no changing it once you close that document out. You can't go back and say, okay, let's go back and let's flip through these pages now. Once it's on there, it's on there. So it's a lot riskier. So I price it just like I would if we're in-person work.
Awesome. Thank you. And Misael?
Yes, I just wanted to ask the questions that I put in the chat. Amy, if possible, can you give us a overview on how a traditional notary can become an electronic notary in most states? Just the fundamentals, having to get a digital certificate and those kind of things, if you can just go over that.
Sure. So in all states, it's going to be a little bit different. But the first thing, if you're interested in becoming an online notary, is to know what kind of business do you expect to bring in. This is an important question, because if you want to come into like signature, no, what it is, Rocket Close, where they're sending you all of the work, well, then you don't need to market yourself. You're just going to be an on-demand for just that company, and they have certain standards for that software system. If you're wanting to come into this and you're like, I'm going to bring all of my own clients, that means you need to start marketing. You need to start getting your name out there. You need to really start building your brand across the nation. And that means getting clients first. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a whole lot of money and you're not going to be seeing a return on your investment right away. That's why it's important to understand the difference in how these things work. Or you could be in a hybrid state, kind of like proof on demand or the Blue Notary on demand, things of that nature, and bring your own clients as well. But that also requires marketing, because no platform is going to give you enough work in order to pay your bills consistently. So if you're doing something that's like a hybrid or an on-demand, other than if you've got a really good deal with like a closing company, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting your name out there so that you can get a return on your investment quicker. The next thing you're going to want to do is find out what that software requires. Each software is different. Proof no longer takes the IdenTrust certificate. They have their own. So do you have to buy IdenTrust? With some platforms, yes. With some platforms, no. Blue Notary has their own that you can buy from them as well. So understanding what the software is going to give you will help itemize the things that you have to buy in addition to whatever the software is giving you. Almost all platforms give you your electronic stamp, and your electronic stamp is the electronic image of the ink stamp that you ink on documents, not to be confused with the digital certificate. The digital certificate is the electronic file that locks the document and allocates the fact that you personally locked that document. So it validates you as the notary did it. So in addition to that, each state might require training. Like in Ohio, there's one specific trainer that you have to go through. But in Texas, you just have to take their online class it's free. In Florida, there's a whole lot of different places you can take the test and get done. Some states require additional insurance, additional E&O, additional bonds, and most E&O policies, you have to actually let them know that you're doing online specifically, because that's an additional rider to the policy. And if they don't have that rider in there, it's not going to cover you for an online session. It's a lot in everything you have to do to get set up for this. Now you see why you got to really have an idea of how you want to build your business, business model as to how you're getting clients. Because if you go through and build all of that and then you're not getting money, it's very, very disheartening, especially to an entrepreneur who's excited about going in this route. And then you don't see an immediate turn on your investment, and it's very discouraging for a lot of notaries who think that they're going to get in this and just run. So it's good to be realistic.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Can you just expand a little further on platforms? Your thoughts. You being a platform owner at one point, what do you suggest in this climate?
Before you answer that, Amy. Thank you, Michelle. Before you answer that, Amy, I just want to give a spotlight on Greg Littrell. Greg also owns a platform there in Florida. If Greg wants to come on for a couple minutes and share about that from a platform owner point of view, also on a smaller scale, if you can do that. Greg, do you have a few minutes for that?
Sure. Thanks so much. Biggest thing I want to mention is biggest thing I want to point out is that just follow your state laws. Um, Follow your state laws. I'm in Florida. Florida has relatively easy requirements for registering as a platform. You got to be compliant. As Amy was saying, it can be very misleading how much money you can make, but it's also there's so many thoughts here. But one thing I want to point out is that when you talk about your favorite platform, um, just want to make this real quick comment here. Not all states require a platform. Um, States like Virginia, Texas, New York, for example. And I know, Miss AO, you might go off about New York. It requires you to be compliant, but there is no state approved list. Now, that's very misleading to say, because you need to comply with certain things, such as KBA, for example, in certain states. It's very tricky. It's honestly extremely tricky. I think Amy and Miss AO both know how tricky this can be. but please don't listen to the YouTube advice, not YouTube advice, TikTok advice that you might hear. Um, it's very, it's a very intricate concept. But it's just very, very, very intricate. But anyway, thanks. Just be aware of your state
I
laws.
think
Yeah.
I think one thing that we can agree on is that it is suggested to have more than one platform, just to have a backup in case something happens with the one during the current session, and then you just gotta hop on another one. So I just wanted to take 2 minutes to explain the papering out process. If Amy, if you want to share that,
Yes,
please.
with the recommendation, Amy. Yes.
All right. So first, as far as platforms go, I'm always of the opinion you need three. You need your primary one that is going to service the type of clients that you're going to use, that you're going to market to. When I say that, okay, so the only two states that can't do biometrics right now is Arizona and Texas. So New York, Florida, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey can all do biometric verification. It's a really great tool for international signers. So if you're going to be marketing internationally, you want a software system that will support biometric verification. In Arizona and Texas, you can't do biometrics, but you can do oath of credible witness. Not all platforms can do oath of credible witness. Oath of credible witness is your key to doing international signers that can't get that stupid KBA quiz, okay? So when you go in there, you want the primary one that's going to focus on getting the most bang for your buck for the clients that you're marketing to. The second platform, if that first one isn't Fidelity approved, you want a platform that is Fidelity approved. A Blue Notary is, Proof is. I would say in the choice there, I would get on Proof because you don't have to pay a monthly fee for Proof. You just have to pay a per transaction charge. And if you're only using it once in a blue moon, just for Fidelity documents, there's no sense in paying a subscription fee for that one. The first platform you're probably going to have to pay for. You're going to pay monthly subscription or yearly, and you're going to pay transactions because the platform has costs in those transactions as well. And then the third platform is like your emergency escape hatch. This platform, you're only going to use it if the other two are down. And a little trick, this is how I looked at it. So when my platform was open, I housed my servers in New York on the Amazon cloud in the New York area. So when I picked up my backup emergency platform, I picked one that housed their servers in Texas. Because if Amazon goes down in New York, they're still using Amazon too. So I'm able to flip over to the other one and use it.
Hmm.
And when I say they go down, I'm not saying when someone fails KBA, you switch to a different platform. You have to wait the 24 hours, even if you switch platforms. Okay. I don't have specific names of platforms. There's like 65, 70 of them now. So I would recommend you go to the MISMO list. And I can't pull up the MISMO list on here right now because I'm working from my phone, but it's MIMSO, RON Certified Platforms. And that would be my starting point as to narrowing down what platforms I want to investigate to see which one's going to work best for me. Now, as far as the paper, did that answer that question, Miss Nael?
Yes, absolutely. Also, the papering out process. I know that you're familiar with that, and many states have the same process. If you can, please.
So the papering out of an electronic notarization. So it's basically a copy certification. If you can do a true copy certification, what would happen is, like here in Florida, I would take the document that I notarized online, I would physically print it into a tangible document, and then I'm going to print the true copy certification of an electronic document, and I'm going to attest that I physically printed an unaltered copy of a document that I notarized online. I'm going to ink sign it and I'm going to ink stamp it because a true copy certification does not need the signer's signature. That They're not making any attestation on that document. I'm saying I did this, and I'm doing it, a notary act that's approved in my state. And then I'm going to take those physical documents and I'm going to put them in a FedEx or UPS envelope, and I'm going to ship them to the recipient. Now, if you're in a state that doesn't allow you to do a true copy certification, like Ohio, the process is a little different. What happens is I send that Ohio recipient the electronic file, and I send them a special form that they have to print with that electronic file. And they themselves are going to go in front of an in-person notary, and they're going to say, I, the recipient of this document electronically, printed this document and did not alter it from all the security factors that was done online. And they're going to sign it. And then the notary is going to notarize their signature on that attestation. That in Ohio specifically, it has to be done in ink. It cannot be in the electronic form of authentication, because the new Ohio law requires it be ink. It defeats the purpose to electronically certify that the document was an electronic meaning and notarized. So, but that's the different aspects. So if you could do true copy, you have to physically print the documents. If you're not doing a true copy, the person who is printing the documents has to do an attestation that they did not alter the document before printing. Does that make sense on the different aspects of that?
Misael?
Yes, yes, yes. In New York, I would tell you is slightly different. Um, so in New York, notaries are not allowed to do copy certification, but for the purpose of the papering out process, they can issue a certificate of authenticity for the electronic record when they print it out. So that's the only one time that we're able to issue that type of certification in New York and in New Jersey as well.
Want to make
And
quick.
that's why I said it's basically just like a copy certification. It does have its own name. It is an authentication certificate, but it is basically the same idea as a copy certification.
Right.
That makes sense.
I want to make a quick comment here about Mismo real quick. I put a link in the chat to a recording that I made back in 2024. Mismo is a self-certification. You attest to it to the organization. That recording that I just put in there is a platform that I was able to authenticate to it by using false information like Disney characters for KBA. So it's up to the platform. I It's always best to follow state laws. Fidelity approved, Mismo approved. None of that matters from a state perspective. That video I put in there is evidence of clear-cut fraud by a notary platform, specifically Online Notary Center.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Greg, Stephen, I'll have you speak to that since you're here. Go ahead, Stephen.
No, I just have a question for Miss Ayel and Amy then. When you're doing, because you're saying when we're printing out that document, um, once it's done online. So with the platform that I use for Notary, there's a barcode on you can put it as a cover page on the front or a cover page behind the document you just notarized. And if you scan that barcode, it pulls up that document that was locked online. So my question is that a workaround? If you're printing out the document for the client, is that a workaround of that if the QR code directly scans the signed document online? Because that's a little bit confusing from because I've done quite a few apostilles, and there's only one time I had to do what Misael said in the county clerk because they didn't recognize the platform I was using because Albany didn't update the exemplar list.
Mm.
So that part I know it's a New York issue, I understand, but I'm just wondering.
No, I'm a little
So,
bit confused about, but go ahead, Amy.
So Amy
okay,
knows
so
Pro Notary. Pro Notary, there's a cover sheet. So when you're done with the notarization, they give you a cover letter. The cover letter says this was done at so and so time, and then the QR code pulls up the document online. So I guess that's their way to avoid you altering the document because once it's locked, it's locked. So
Because
so
that
Amy,
sounds more like for digital use, right?
I'm so sorry.
That sounds more like for digital use, like to view the document.
Correct. So then, but when you're printing out the document, that document is printed all together. So it's together as a PDF file. You can't you have to insert the cover letter. You can't download that document without the cover letter. So I've been doing same day apostilles with this method. So I'm just wondering, and they've been accepted. I'm just wondering, um, is there something wrong with that if the QR code is letting everybody know that it was done and locked and they can view it if they want to, even though they have the physical copy?
So typically, when you're papering out something, it's going to be something that's going to be recorded with the state. It's going to be a deed. It's going to be something along those lines. In the recorder's office in the different states have their own statutes that they have to adhere to. In Ohio, Texas, Washington, I believe, off the top of my head, in order to record those deeds, you have to paper out the deed was done online, and it has to be an ink signature that's filed with the deed as an additional paper, saying that that is an exact copy. So in those instances, that QR code isn't going to work because their statute says it has to be an ink signature filed with that deed. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Yes, it does. So it has really nothing to do with the apostille. So you're talking about recordable documents rather than documents itself. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I wasn't too sure
Yeah,
familiar with
I've not,
the paper out.
I've only had to do that with one apostille in one state, and I'll give you guys a little tip on something because I figured this loophole out. Okay, if you do a Delaware online notary, whether it's Ren or Ron, then the state will not apostille a document that was notarized online. They will not do it at all. But if that notary does the print out and does a true copy or an authentication certificate that it was that they say it is an exact copy of that electronic file, they will notarize that aspect of the document. So I can get an apostille in Delaware now. I've done it multiple times. We went back and forth. It was a pain, but we got it. So that is the workaround
That's
with
actually a
Delaware.
very good. That's actually a very good tip. Wow, Amy, I did
I
not.
know.
I
I'll
got to
give you
admit
a
it,
good
Amy.
tip.
I did not know that. I did not know that. That is a good tip, and I'm well aware that they will not do online. That's a good tip, Amy.
Thank you. All right, Jessica. Jessica has a question. Jessica?
Hi, guys. Thank you. This is for Nisa and Amy. It's kind of the same question, just with the papering out process. So I was a little confused because it is kind of vague, in New York, and I know we have to, have them print out the documents and then we certify, we do the certificate of authenticity. So my question is, can we add that into the Ron session and have it printed out? Or do we have them print it out? Do we either see some way that they printed it out, or and then we can notarize that document and send it to them? Um, sign it physically, maybe send
So,
them a copy of that. Like, so how exactly would you do that? And then is it only for, so the second part of that question, is it only for when they're printing it out? So if they're keeping a digital copy, if they're emailing it to the receiving party, they don't need the certificate of authenticity, correct?
Correct.
so
Okay.
I have something to say about that, but go ahead, Amy, please.
Okay. So if I remember correctly, I don't see her name anymore because it switched to Miss Ayel. You're Florida, correct?
Jessica was
No,
going to ask.
I'm in New York.
New York. Okay. So if you're in a state where you can do the certificate of authenticity, remember you have to be the one who's physically printing that file. So You could add it to the document, but you can't complete it in the Ron session. It has to be blank when you print the file at the end. Does that make sense? Because you've got to do it in the ink pen.
Mm.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Now, if you're in a state like Ohio or Texas where the recipient has to print and then do the attestation in front of a different notary in person, I would highly recommend adding it to the closing package just so that they have it when they get it. I had an instance, I got a call to the hotline the other day, it was about 2 weeks ago now. This notary in Texas got an on-demand session from Proof, and she did the deed and all of that online, completely compliant, no issues. And the recorder's office hunted her down and wanted her to fill out that authentication certificate. And I kept telling her, says, you have to be the one that prints it. So if you're going to do that, you have to charge them, because now you're going to print this document. You're going to perform a notarial act on the document. And now you have to ship the document to the recorder's office.
Oh, wow.
Or you can email them the authentication certificate and they can fill it out in front of a different notary. But either way, it's not something you want to do for free. You know what I mean?
That sounds complicated to me, who is not a remote online notary.
Okay, so I do have a thought to share as far as New York, right? Because I've had quite a bit of a battle with the county clerk for acceptance. So there's a lot of components for New York because we have the state technology law, which provides that a digital signature will have the same force and effect of a wet signature in lieu of a wet signature. So you can basically digitally sign anything. So in our certificate of authenticity, it says that it's either the document is printed by the notary or in the supervision of the notary. So it gives you like two options there. And then as far as the signature, the main concern here for Jessica is the chain of custody. You want to have the chain of custody for the document before you release it to the signer. So you do not want to release it via email for them to do the printout along with the certificate of authenticity signed by you electronically or wet ink and then digitize via a scan bag. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to print out that document and then deliver that physical hard copy to that signer. However, in New York, because I do have I do a little bit of experimenting, I do my own thing in New York, but I justify it. And please do not do what I do. And so, because I do have an understanding of the state technology law of New York, and I do understand that if you follow a particular method to apply a digital signature on a document, which has to be footnoted by the actual guidance that's provided in the state technology guidance, which says that you want to use a digital certificate from Adobe, which has all of the itemized date, time, and all of those things on the digital certificate. They will accept that type of digital certificate because it shows intent that an individual applied that digital certificate. Anyone can apply a digital signature without all of that information that Adobe adds, and people can definitely fraudulently add signatures and what have you So that's something that comes out of this New York State Technology Guidance Manual, where they say that you can do it in this method. And I myself have done it in that method. I'm not going to lie. I have digitally signed a certificate of authenticity with set verbiage, but I do not suggest for anyone else to follow what I do. I just I'm just sharing that there's a lot of things that, you know, people can do to make sure that they're compliant and follow the rules. And that's it. That's all I got to say about that. If it wasn't too complicated.
Thank you.
Okay, let me give it
Okay,
in
go ahead.
simpler terms. Okay, so if any one of you go to a RON document that you've downloaded, at the top, when you open it in Adobe, it's going to say the certificate or signature panel because it's locked. And you say, I want to view signatures. And then in that little like itemized thing that comes up on your screen, you can click view signature, view certificate. And when you click open the certificate details, it will show the issue and issue, the name, the state, and who issued the certificate, as well as the date it was issued and the date it expires. Typically, it like I use IdenTrust, so it's going to give my IdenTrust verification of that digital certificate. So what he's doing is basically, if I'm understanding, taking a screenshot and printing that and adding it to the document that you were trying to get done through the county clerk. Is that right, Ms. Ayal? Well,
Well,
anyway,
not a
Jessica.
screenshot. I just add the regular certificate on the document with a regular Adobe. And this is something that I do for my job because I work at a law firm. So, so when I do just not my personal one, not my business one, with my IdenTrust, I create a regular one that everyone can do with. If you have Adobe set up on your computer, everyone has access to make their own digital certificate. You just really got to figure it out. YouTube University is out there, and it's really simple. And I use that for my job because we're allowed to. We're all okay. We have the green light to be able to do that. So if you don't do it.
Well, let me just piggyback real quick. So the security concept that they're talking about here, and I'm getting into cybersecurity for just a minute. It's security concept known as non-reputability, and what that is the inability to say you didn't do something. So we're talking about the concept of X509 digital certificates, which is really important in the world of RON. And so when you are done with the document, the notary, in some cases, depending on the platform, the signer might as well, but in almost all cases in RON, remote online notary, the notary applies their X509 digital certificate to the document, the purpose of which is the inability for the notary to say they did not sign the document. And then there's the concept of printing the document out, which I think New York calls papering out, which is certifying that you did in fact sign this document electronically. And as Amy mentioned earlier, kind of ties into this. She also mentioned that you can get an apostille for that in Delaware, which I did not know about. If you basically paper out in Delaware, you can get an apostille apparently on that. But it's the security concept known as non-reputability, and that's how the notary signs the document at the end with the X509 digital certificate.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Amy and Miss Ayel, I have a question for you. Well, not a question, but for your input. A press release came out today about Notary Live and Smart Advocate. They're now partnering together to eliminate legal notarization delays. Miss Ayel, can you speak to that? How does that impact? Does that impact notaries or just on the legal side of documentation?
I'm sorry, my microphone here. I didn't hear the question too well. I'm sorry.
A press release came out today about Smart Advocate and Notary Live. They're now partnering together to quote unquote to eliminate notarization delays, legal notarization delays. Is that something that you're working within your space?
I mean, we all want expedient service. I
Right.
think, you know, if they're optimizing, I think that would be a benefit. The reality is that most of us have to fall in line. We have to keep up with technology. We have to ascend with the new practices that are coming out and new ways of doing things. And we just got to fill those spaces.
Okay. With that said, Amy, do notaries have to fear that if they don't get in line with remote online notarizations, that somehow, somewhere, they might get left behind? Or
I don't think they're going to get left behind. There's always going to be need for in-person notary. Some people don't like it. Some people won't accept it. And then, mind you, just because it's legal doesn't mean the agency is going to allow it. Not a lot of people like electronic signatures. They like having the ink pen signatures. And that's what the big issue with real estate is. The electronic signature holds less value on the resale market of the mortgage. So banks don't want to use the electronic signatures because when they resell that mortgage, they're going to make less money. So the ink signatures are worth
oh,
more to the
really?
banks. Yes,
I didn't
yes.
realize
Think of it
that.
like a stock market. So think of it like a stock market. If you've got a stock in ink pen signatures and you've got a stock in electronic signatures, you're going to get more when you sell the ink signature stock than you are the electronic signature stock because the electronic signatures hold less value. Now, they hold a lot more value than they did in the beginning. Don't get me wrong, it's come way, way in advance. There's a lot more people doing it now, but that's what the big banks have issues with is getting that market value equalized between the signatures. And they are working on it. I go to the electronic mortgage conference in North Carolina. They're big advocates on getting it up there. It is getting there, but it takes time. So that's why you don't see a lot of Ron in the mortgage aspect, a refi, a brand new finance property. You'll see it more in a cash buyout or a seller's package. They're more apt to do that because they're not going to resell those documents. They're only doing it when it's financed.
Also,
So
I
there's a
want to
little
say
tip
that
there too.
an
Thank you.
in-person notary, that's comfortable and competent notarizing in person should not feel any pressure if they don't want to do online notarization. If they don't feel like they want to, or that's online notary is going to go absolutely nowhere. It's going to be around forever, in terms of my lifetime at least. And so, yeah, so a there should be absolutely zero pressure for somebody to feel like they have to become an online notary. It's a different ballpark altogether, but the in-person notary is going nowhere at all. And so if they don't feel comfortable with it or they don't like it, they're adverse to technology, they should not pursue it, which is totally fine.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Can I add just
Yes,
Can I add just one more comment to that? If
absolutely.
you're not wanting to do online, it does not. It's not a deal breaker. Okay, you don't have to pick and choose. But if you want to be a solution provider to your clients, if that's not something you want to do yourself, you want to band together with other notaries that are doing that sector because you will at some point get asked, I need this. And you're going to go, I can't legally do this, but I have a partner. I have a business partner who can do that for you. And that client's going to remember that you were a solution provider. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you can't offer solutions.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. And with everything that you've learned today, let us stress that you have to check with your state laws to see what's acceptable in your state and what remote online notary platforms are approved by your state. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Miss Ayel. Thank you, Greg. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. Do we have any closing questions before we leave out? I want to respect your time. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one question. This is Patrice.
Yes, Patrice.
Earlier on, it was mentioned that if you have multiple documents, like when you're doing the remote online notarization, sometimes my clients will change the documents during the session. So I would have to delete a document and then upload. If it's set as 3 separate documents, would that cause an issue with the remote online notarization when we're trying to get it apostilled, or if they're trying to use it and it's 3 separate documents versus 1 consistent document?
Trish, what
I need a
state are you
clarifying
talking about?
question.
I'm in
What
New
state?
Jersey. I'm in
Okay.
New Jersey. I'm in New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
So the documents themselves can be, I think you're asking a question about multiple notarized documents being within the
Well,
same PDF file versus multiple separate files. Is that your question basically?
yes, because sometimes they'll change the documents, and instead of it being 1 consistent flowing document, it'll be 3 separate
So
individual
so
documents.
changing the documents, if I don't know what platform you're talking about, but if you have a platform that the final document should be the final document. So if you have a platform that does not, the platform should support you switching. Once you finalize a document, it's done. So if the customer comes along and says, "Hey, I want to change my mind here," then you start getting into it, and then it becomes a 20-hour session. I'm being facetious. The
Mm-hmm.
final document should be the final document.
Okay.
So the platform should support that. But the PDF file itself, just because it's only signed with a digital signature once, does not mean that it's one singular notarized document. For example, I could have 20 different documents, 20 different notarized documents in Florida under one PDF file, but it'd be apostilled 20 times. But the platform should be able to give the notary the ability to switch it out, and that's just something that happens during. So it's very important to differentiate between a notary session and the apostille. Once a notary session is done, it's done. That's the final document you have is in fact the notarized document. If you print a document out, it's just like you were in person. If there was a mistake on an in-person document, you throw
Mm-hmm.
that page away. You should think of online notarization the same way. Please tell me, Amy or Miss A, if you disagree with me on that.
So, Patrice, what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about them having to be in a singular file, I was
Yeah.
referring to the state of Kentucky.
Okay.
And Kentucky is an e-apostille state. So when you do an online session, you upload that finalized document to their portal for the apostille. They won't take a printed RON session as an apostille, to my knowledge. So
Okay.
if your session, so in your context, so this is what my clarifying question was.
Mm-hmm.
If you're adding a document and you say you're adding 3 files, are they page 1, page 2, and page 3 of a single file, or is it 1 document, 2 document, 3 document, all having their own notarial act?
So it's 1 session. I was using Blue Notary, and it was 1 session, and when I uploaded the documents, they uploaded as 3 different separate files.
Mm.
It wasn't just 1
There's a trick
file.
to that. There's a trick to fix that. So when you instead of going to modify documents in the menu bar,
Yes.
go on the document itself in the top toolbar. There's like
Mhm.
a little square and a little square where you can modify the document in that 1 session.
Okay.
When that window pops up on the top right, there's 3 dots. And then when you click it, it says import document. And then you can import a page from your files on your computer, and you
Mm-hmm.
can move it to where you want it in that file that's already on your screen. And then it comes
Okay.
out into 1 singular output.
Yeah,
Thank
I can
you.
definitely see the concern here because some states that have like a secure file transfer, for example, you upload to the state 1 PDF file, which actually contains multiple notarized documents. That can certainly be a concern. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you were to try to get tricky and print it out into PDF and so forth, it could degrade the document. So yeah, you really probably do want to keep them as separate PDF files without a doubt.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you for your time. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Teresa, Amy, before we go, one last question. Shantae asked a question about Mesmo and Fidelity approved only be applicable when dealing with remote online notary loan signings.
So MISMO is the Mortgage Bankers Association seal of approval. So those MISMO is pretty much required for anything that's going for a real estate transaction, just because it's a secondary layer. It's not state required in most states. Some states it is, but it is something that banks want to see. They want to have an approved platform that's in addition to the state minimums.
Mm-hmm.
Fidelity is only going to be Fidelity. So if you're dealing with Fidelity Bank, they're going to want a platform that is Fidelity approved. They're very, very strict on what they allow a platform to do and not do. And so I hope that answers that.
All right. Thank you. All right. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us. Next, the link you joined us with tonight is the same link for all of the future Statutes of Notaries. You're welcome to join us at any Wednesday evening, 8 to 9 Eastern Time. Join us next week where we will be discussing a topic dear to all notaries: notary fees, caps, and allowable charges in 2026. That's our topic for next week. So please join us. Invite your friends to join us. We'll be here 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Misael, Amy, Greg, Lisa, all, thank you all very much for joining us. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Teresa.
Teresa, for letting me join.
Good night, Teresa.
Good
You're quite
night.
welcome. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.